KDMP Rays, could you discuss the team's morale? What were some of the biggest ups and downs over development, and does the community's vitriol have effect on everyone? And he also adds, are there any Reddit posts that help boost morale for you guys?
Well, to answer the last one, I can't think of anything specific. I will say this much: the big morale booster is just watching someone enjoy it. You see someone playing a new build and having fun. That's huge. I don't want to speak for the team right now. It's their place to talk about how they feel, but I can say that we have all had our ups and downs as a team, and some of the toughest spots are towards the tail end of when it builds out, right before a new update, when something's been out long in the tooth and people are seeing it, warts and all, and are very upset about it, and the developers are incompetent, the developers are taking the money and running, the developers are this, the developers are that, they're the worst thing since Trump was voted into office. It's just, that's rough, because no one that works on DayZ is there for the money. Like, yes, they need a paycheck for a job, but the paycheck isn't what keeps them going and working hard on it. I don't know if that makes much sense.
No, it does.
But it's nothing to write home about. It's nothing to write home about. They pay well for the Czech Republic, yes, but it's nothing to write home about. This isn't like, it's not like a union rate or something. They're there and they're still clocking away on it, and they haven't moved to other projects because they love DayZ, and they want to see it finished. And it is so fucking demoralizing when people call that into question, when they question their competence, when they question their general human decency. It's really shitty.
G Walker 2776. Brian gives the best interviews. Even though he isn't on the team anymore, I'm still intensely curious as to what he has to say about the project. He can't wait. So I hope you've been happy so far. He does have a specific question though. And you may or may not be able to answer this one, but is stamina affected if you're on trails or roads compared to rough terrain?
I can't answer that. I
It's a good
genuinely
question
don't
though.
know. The engine should definitely be capable of making that determination, especially considering I know that I'm pretty confident we talked about this. The team has been working towards for quite some time. The audio side of the engine being able to recognize the material that's used in a 3D space to determine the levels of reverb and volume and such. So determining what material is below the character as they're traversing the terrain should be entirely possible in this engine. It's definitely possible in Unreal, so I don't see why it wouldn't be possible in Infusion.
Yeah.
If the DayZ team doesn't do it, I can guarantee a competent modder could if they wanted to.
Gecko time. Speaking of modding, with mod support right around the corner, well, since the time he posted this question and now it's pretty much here. What kind of mods are you expecting to happen, and which ones are you looking forward to? And in that regard, what kind of things, if any, did you personally like to add to DayZ but never got a chance because it doesn't fit with the usual design of DayZ?
Oh, Peter asked me this the other day when we were talking about modding. I wanted to add an entire system around the processing, the growing and processing, and harvesting, the whole fucking deal of illicit substances. I was going to write a whole thing, since I dealt with it a bit in 5M, about making methamphetamine
Yep.
in DayZ and the effects it could have, the pros and the cons. I didn't feel like it really fit DayZ, but if I was to tinker around, I think that's where I would start.
Okay. Quartz Puffy Star. Will you join Dean and play a session of DayZ together once it's fully released? Just for the old times. Also to make Dean consider making a mod of his mod.
I don't know if Dean would make a mod of his mod. I think Dean is still every day getting slag about Daisy. And I can't speak as to whether or not he'd be interested in playing with me, like, on a stream. I can guarantee I can get his ass in a game on her own. And to book in that, I did rather foolishly make a commitment to do a 24-hour stream alongside Austin, X-Smack, formerly X-Smack, now TSM Smack. 24-hour Daisy stream when it hits 1.0. So I am kind of locked into that.
Yep.
Maybe that's why I said Daisy has no business being 1.0 in 2018.
The longer you leave it, the harder it'll get, mate. You're only getting older.
Oh, good point.
Okay. He also asked, when does your NDA with Bohemia Interactive end? People want a documentary about Daisy development, which I agree. I think that would be fascinating for, the fact that Daisy's held up as one of the first big titles to do a very public early access program. And I think a lot of people would be interested in the goings on behind the scenes in that.
I'd be interested to see NoClip do it. I'm pretty sure my NDA is in perpetuity. But that said, Bohemia is not a litigious company, especially with old employees, and I don't think it would benefit them nor I to slog it out. It's really about, like, when is the right time to start talking about things. When it's definitely not during development.
So more than likely would see something like the previous question about GDC.
Yeah, essentially, when the right time to do a genuine postmortem comes around, that might be the right time to start for something like that to happen. But I have no idea if Danny and the guys at NoClip would be interested in doing that.
Yep. Now, this question, I'm not quite sure of the reference to it. I haven't heard of the Planet Blue, but he says, what are your thoughts in the potential of a merger of Bohemia Interactive's Planet Blue with a title like Daisy in the future, like in 10 years' time?
Hold on a second. Let me Google Planet Blue because I have no fucking idea what it is. Ah, that's not a BI title. It's a BI Sims title. Like much of what BI Sims does, it's not consumer viable. That's taking niche and going to a whole other level of niche. It's like developing an entire title for VR when the only VR headset out was the Oculus DK1. I don't know. I don't. And keep in mind, Bohemia Interactive Simulations, which is a completely different company than Bohemia Interactive Studio, they separated years and years and years and years ago. Their shit is expensive as fuck. Like, so expensive. Oh my god. I don't see it being viable.
Okay. His last question is, what's the most mean comment you have ever seen about the devs on Reddit?
On Reddit. Usually the really bad shit's on Twitter.
Yeah.
I never looked at Facebook because I was advised by one of our community managers to not bother. I did see someone question the general competency in a very, very aggressive and disrespectful fashion of Peter as a fucking human, and I thought it was terrible. I've seen people say some nasty shit. People have, in fact, I'm not sure. I think it was Twitter. Someone told me in not so many words. That the cause for the death of my grandfather was that I had scammed millions of people. I've had people focused on illicitly recording members of my direct personal life to gain dirt on me and make drama of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people compromise friends' Facebook accounts just to go through my Facebook contacts that are restricted to friends only, and then harass members of my family that don't realize who they are, like my grandmother, and my aunts and my uncles. I've had folks try to convince members of my family that I was dead. I've seen folks literally wish for Dean's death while climbing mountains. People have sent me messages hoping that my plane is shot down while flying across to Pax, Australia.
And the list goes on. It sounds like there's, just a never-ending stream of
I've
it.
had ex-girlfriends ask me why I keep screenshots of it. I have thousands upon thousands of screenshots of some of the worst things people have said to me. I don't know why I keep it. Maybe because I want to have it and point to it when people tell me that it's not that bad or that I don't deserve it. Maybe I just want to remember who the people are that would say this kind of stuff to me.
Yep.
I've had people that I've gone out of my way for to do nice things for that later on, because they disagreed with how something happened in DayZ, have have flat out openly in a public forum accused me of being a money-grubbing thief, that I've done things for money. There's no fucking profit sharing for anybody that works on DayZ. We don't own any bit of it. I don't have stocks in Bohemia. I never got a pay raise for the amount of sales that were done. I never got an attaboy from anybody in the company. None of my decisions or anybody on my team's decision was motivated by wanting money or prestige. It was because we believed we were doing what was right. We believed in our decisions because we fucking cared about the game. And the internet sometimes, I kind of wonder if we're better off without it.
It's an argument I have with my son. He's 17, regarding anonymity on the internet. I feel that there's not enough accountability for a lot of people, but he's of the belief that it needs to be anonymous. It's something we disagree on quite strongly, but yeah. Minge Blaster, will you ever start streaming again? Well, you're hinting that you may be soon. So if you haven't, there'll be a link in the description. Make sure you give Brian a follow on Twitch and hit that receive notifications bell. Because I imagine if he does it, he won't make a big song and dance about it. He'll just do it.
Yeah, I don't want to flood people's timelines that follow me on Twitter with like, I'm streaming now. So that's probably the best.
Okay, Lapippin, sorry, has quite a few questions. So the first one we've already answered. How often do you play DayZ? And do you still find it fun? Well, obviously yes, and you're playing it quite a bit. This next one is quite interesting of his. For me, it seems nighttime in DayZ has always been an afterthought. Do the devs care about having a balanced and functioning nighttime?
Well, again, I can't speak for the team, but I can say that the topic of night is something that was constantly brought up. It was the whole reason why we now have light respecting the geometry of any given structure or static mesh in the world. You know, for those that don't recall, used to be the geometry was completely ignored. You know, you drop a flare in a building and that sucker acts like the building isn't there. That this was all absolutely critical to nighttime gameplay, and a lot of work has been put into how dark nighttime is, and there is night vision goggles coming down the pipeline. It's a rare item. There's the flashlights and the flares and the campfires, and God, Peter, if you're hearing this, you need to increase the render distance on those fires, man. That's too short. Yeah, it's never been an afterthought. The problem is a lot of players, it's just, they don't like it.
Yeah.
It's easier to play during the nighttime, so let's play during the nighttime. I would like to see, and I'll talk to Peter about this if he's got the time to talk to me. He's a very busy man right now, but I would like to see experimentation with certain spawns only occurring when the server is at a specific time of day. So maybe the loot is better during the night, or maybe certain things or AI only spawn during the night. Maybe a certain dynamic event only happens during the night. Incentivize the night rather than try and force them into it. Make them want it more.
It sort of ties into, I believe they've got to spend a bit more time working on, and I imagine choppers will be a big part of this, but there needs to be loot that is unique to certain locations just to encourage people to move around the map and not just all gravitate either on the coast or at the Northwest Airfield slash Tizzy, for example. Loot that is specific to Novo, loot that is specific to Zelly. I like that certain things
The
spawn in
current system
certain areas.
completely allows that. Yeah.
Hmm. What is your idea of a perfect day-night cycle?
Mm, maybe half an hour to an hour per, or
Yep.
maybe days are a little bit longer than nights. Nighttime should be substantial enough that you can get a good feel for it and have a lot of fun, but not so long that it's a hindrance and it's annoying.
Yeah.
Like an hour, somewhere between a half an hour to an hour of night is great, I think.
Yep. Is there any
But
way that? Sorry.
in true, I don't mean to interrupt, but in true Bohemia Interactive fashion, that needs to be a variable that can be configured by server owners. It shouldn't be just piecemeal, or not piecemeal, but just blanket forced to
Yep.
everyone. It should be an option.
Is there any way that BI can prevent public hive players from server hopping in order to play only daylight servers?
Well, it's not a matter of is there a way that they can do it. It's does it make sense to dedicate the resources needed to do it that would be needed to completely address that problem? Does that make sense? Versus knowing that the players will, once you put out an initiative, a new method, a new system to de-incentivize that, they're going to find a way around it. That is what they do. Just with enough time, there is always more players than there are developers.
Yeah.
And that manpower will churn through the problem and find a workaround around it. So ideally, you just de-incentivize it as much as possible so that it's annoying to do it rather than try and completely stop it.
If the technology severely limits the amount of infected on the map, would it make sense to make them stronger instead of increasing their numbers?
Well, I think it's not that simple. I mean, if it's a matter of, does the platform not is the platform not able to support the amount of infected quantity wise that it needs to? Uh, if that's the case, then the first thing that needs to happen is being more intelligent in how you're spawning them. Look at, proximity spawning, event spawning within areas, more of a trigger-based, but not specifically script triggers, but more of a servlet trigger-based or central economy trigger-based system. So you concentrate those infected more around players and around player proximity than spreading them out. So it
Yep.
gives the illusion of more, despite the fact that there's actually less. And as far as like adjusting their difficulty and the damage they do, that's definitely a card in the designer's deck. But first should be, how are we using this resource? Let's use it more efficiently to give the player the illusion of more of them around at all times.
I think that should be something that server owners should be able to play with as well. How powerful the zombies are. So, someone who wants to create a more hardcore server can create them where they're a real threat, but probably not until stealth is at an optimal sort of point where you can get around them.
Oh yeah, well I mean when it comes straight down to it, modifying data, it really is just a float value in a script somewhere and a config. So I can guarantee, yes, they can fuck with that all they want.
Yeah.
But you are correct, and it should entirely be doable.
Okay, what's the upper technical limit for the amount of concurrent players on one server? Where do you think is the sweet spot?
Well, I don't know what the upper technical limit is. I get the impression it's 127. I think the sweet spot as a designer is, as I said before, 75 to 100. I
Yep.
think below that, and you're not seeing players enough. I think above 100, and you're seeing players too often. I think 256 square kilometers of terrain is 75 to 100 players, ideally, with good server performance.
In many interviews, the devs have said that very little gameplay balancing and number tweaking has been done. If and when do you think this is likely to happen?
Well, I mean, typically, traditionally, something like that, the level of detail pass on balancing would occur either towards the end of a milestone, if it was a traditionally published project on later milestones, or towards the end of the development cycle. So I'd say the first large focus on this kind of polished stuff should occur in the first few builds before what we would consider a MVP, minimum viable product, or an RTM build, released to manufacturing. So if their intent is to have DayZ leave early access 1.0 this year, then that kind of stuff should start happening no later than mid-November. But again, I don't fucking see that happening. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't want to doubt anybody's capabilities. Just let's be realistic here.
If you could use a magic wand to start changing the numbers yourself, what are the first things you would like to balance?
Well, I always thought the time to empowerment ratio, the amount of time that a player has to invest into or towards the minimum amount of gear before they feel empowered enough to take on the threats further inland. I always thought that time, the time to optimum loot, to time to basic loot, really needs to be iterated upon and focused upon, which hopefully will occur during that polish pass. But that's where things like, if you look at the central economy data for the offline mode that the servers, the private servers run, the community servers, you'll see a lot of, essentially very similar to like Unreal gameplay tags and such, a lot of tags and configurable values, like in an array, that define like where something can spawn, restrictions on what region of Chernarus it's allowed to be in, the tags that it has on it. All this is things that iterated through time, trying to allow us more precise control over what loot is on the coast and what loot is in the high risk areas. If I could start tweaking numbers, I would jump straight into the economy on that and start tweaking specifically South Coast, the spawn region volumes. What is restricted to those areas, the quantity of things in those areas. That would be my first stop.
Now, he says experienced players can run out of things to do quite quickly. Do you think some sort of end game goals outside of bases are important? Me, I disagree. I don't think DayZ should have end goal or end game. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, well, the end game, really, I think for DayZ should be whatever you want to achieve that day.
Yeah.
Often, the nature of a game and the nature of game playing means the rarest things are the hardest to find things, the hardest to achieve things tend to be in-game, whether they're defined that way by designers or not. So, your helicopters, your trucks, building a base, taking over a town, whatever it is. Permanence on the world, player permanence on the world tends to be, within DayZ, what we view as in-game. And I forgot what his question was past that.
Where was it again? Do you think some sort of end game goals outside of bases are important?
No, it's just all about player permanence. Like, if you can distill it all down to player permanence. Players projecting their goals onto the world being the server that they're on, and expanding upon that. So making sure those base building or barricading, whatever it may be, players having an impact on the world itself and shaping it to what they want, I think is the closest thing you can get to end game, allowing them to define what the end game is.
I'm skipping his next question because it was just about players being unaffected by dampness, cold, and illnesses and that. But as we can see, they're slowly implementing or iterating that. Illnesses are back in the game already, just not fatal, I don't believe, but they do have the sickness effects. And temperature.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm watching my temperature gauge fluctuating up and down while we're just sitting here. So it looks like they've started working on that as well.
I thought was really cool? This is the guy that gave me the pig steaks earlier. He gave me a baked one and a boiled one.
Yeah.
I was like, holy fuck, those tags are in and functional? And
awesome.
The boiled one, I swear to God, hydrated me. That was really cool.
Okay. Do you think there will ever be a point at which stability is no longer their primary concern and can begin to focus more heavily on content, features, and balancing gameplay?
Well, any title that is open world to the degree that Daisy is, stability is always going to be a focus because every time you put new content and every time you make an iterative change, there's a risk to stability. So it's always going to be something they're focused on. It's why they have live teams and live ops on titles like this. But I mean, I hope as we get closer to their 1.0 goal that the focus ends up being exactly where you'd like it to see. Man. Wish I could just help Peter out right now. They've got a mountain of work ahead of them.
Yeah.
And so many things they want to get done. And there's this stupid ticking clock. I'm not a fan of it.
How do you feel about loot spawns in 0.63 right now?
It's a lot better than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot better. I still think there's room for improvement, but I don't know. There's still a chance to starve. I like that. It's possible. There's chances to find really cool shit. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a lot better than it has been. I think the economy right now is in the healthiest state it's ever been in the development.
I recall you put a tweet out many years ago where someone had done a concept fan art of a dynamic event of like a fortified
Oh
house.
yeah, yeah. I think I've still got that bookmarked. That was it was a house. I think it was a Svetlo house that had been fortified.
Yeah.
It looked like it had been fortified, but then it was a fortification that had been attacked, and there was like zombies around it and stuff. It looked really cool.
That is something I would love to know if modders are going to be able to do, because that I thought was, when you're spawning on the coast, generally you're very light, so that it's a high risk but potentially a high reward to go in and clear it out. Or yeah,
Obviously, in order to support that, it's going to need to be full modding, not just the soft touch modding we have right now. Modders are going to have to be able to release client side data.
yeah.
But yeah, that's entirely doable.
Radios, megaphones, and PA systems have made for some really fun interaction recently. Do you think in-game radios need to be more user-friendly? Battery consumption, wearability, usability. You've sort of covered on that.
Yeah, they need to. The radio needs to spawn with the player, 100%. We've spawned flashlights, we've spawned flares, we've
Yeah.
spawned rags. Let's spawn a fucking radio, something that opens up more gameplay opportunities for them. I'd extend well, obviously I would spawn the battery in the radio, and I'd extend the lifetime of the battery. There's been a lot of hullabaloo about like, well, then there'll be batteries everywhere. I think sometimes we're just too fucking afraid of what could happen when we should be trying and experimenting. And I genuinely, firmly believe that yes, the potentially the range. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen the values in script of what the current distance is configured for the transceiver. Potentially, maybe that should be bumped up a little bit. And I would like to see some confirmation of the transmission, like to let you know you've transmitted. I don't like the fact that that's kind of not there. Like maybe a little, beep, that you would get on any kind of handheld radio. But oh fuck, I mean, there's so much. God, though I am really in love with those systems, and yes, I think they need to be a little more accessible. I think they're a little too hard right now as far as like achieving the goal of enabling them.
Now, he says a lot of veteran players treat their characters as disposable, and players don't really value their life as much as they once might have. In a game where your only goal is to stay alive, how do you think survival could be more encouraged? I think soft skills adds to it, but what's your thoughts?
Oh yeah, soft skills. Soft skills is huge. The idea of training up a character to be able to be really proficient in a certain area, and then you don't want to lose that. You don't want to fucking lose that. This is it's like the old stat loss in Ultima Online for murderers. Like if you died as a murderer and resurrected, if I see my memory serves me right, and resurrected at the Chaos Shrine, the only place a murderer flagged person could be resurrected without a player mage resurrecting you, you would lose progress on your stats. They would dip. Skill and stat loss was a thing. So maybe we don't wipe the soft skills completely on death, Or maybe that's a variable that the server can operators can set. Like, do we wipe skills on death? Maybe instead, maybe the stock variable, maybe the stock setting is that they're just reduced. So you roll back a little bit of your progress, but not all of your progress. But I really feel like the value on the character is right there on the skills, and it's just they haven't hit, so we haven't been able to see, like in practice versus in theory, how players would play with that.
Yep. You think that right now staying alive is too easy? I know I do.
I am a horrible judge of that. Like at this point, I can't take my own. I could play Daisy with my toes and stay alive.
Yeah.
Like I'm a bad judge for that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. It's hard to judge when you're an experienced player. You're experienced for a reason. You put the hours in, but we can all remember our very first times playing Daisy, be it the mod or be it standalone, and just dying and dying and dying because you didn't know how to find food and
Oh yeah, yeah. I crawled all the way from fucking Pit Kozlovka, Skyrim Mountain,
yep.
to Electro on my belly in the nighttime, thinking it was what I needed to do to stay alive. Yeah, I remember that.
If solo players can manage just fine on their own, they may be less inclined to team up with people they find. Do you think the difficulty or lack of has any impact on the quality of player interaction?
Potentially. I would also say the opportunity to organize said player interaction at a safer distance is gone because the radios are so hard to come across. I'm a broken record on this radio issue, but I really think we're fucking up by not taking advantage of them. I say we as the Daisy team.
I think you'll find a lot of people in the comments to this agree.
But then again, I'm just a player,
5-7 Clown, how are you enjoying being back in the States?
I left what I felt was a country that knew itself, and maybe I was wrong, and came back to some elements. I came back to a very divided country. I came back to a country that has lost. Maybe we never had it, but I feel like we've lost our national identity, and I have seen fear of others, fear of change, fear of losing something. I don't know what. Grip people. I've seen Americans turn against Americans. I've seen Americans treat our neighbors as subhuman. And I have seen nationalism and symbolism weaponized. I am not proud of my country because of a flag or because I come from a family that wore a uniform. Those are symbols. They're pieces of cloth. This country is, I left a country I was proud of because of its ideals and its principles. And I feel like I came back to a divided nation where some people are more concerned about symbols and tribes and less concerned about what is right and just for all. So that's how I feel about coming back to the States.
So what do you miss the most about the Czech Republic then?
maybe I had my head in my sand while I was there, but while they might not have been as progressive as the Pacific Northwest Society I left on certain social issues, I didn't see much actual hate. There is some. They are not perfect. But at the time, the majority of my time there, before the attacks in Paris and Brussels, I felt it was more about being human.
Yep.
Sure, there's a lot of taking the piss out of people, and I'm all for that. I'm all for a little bit of ribbing, of good-natured fun, of jokes. But I did feel I do miss at least the illusion. Maybe it was an illusion. I don't know, but I do miss the feeling of respect for your fellow man. And that might just be me. You know how nostalgia is. Like in maybe I'm sugarcoating
Rose tinted glasses.
my time there. Who knows? Yes.
Now, you've answered whether you still play the game, but I do like his addendum to that question. When you do you play under an assumed name? And when you meet people, say, do you know who I am? And when they don't, you shoot them in the face and say, do you know now?
No. I don't think I've ever... There was one time I can recall playing DayZ where I tried to use who I was to my advantage. And it was in Chernaya Polana, shortly after the town was added. I had made friends with an Austrian guy who didn't speak too much English, and we got held up around the fire station. I was on the other side, and I could hear someone holding him up and saying they were going to kill him. They were going to kill him if I didn't come out right now. And I was trying to get around the side of the building, around the back, to get to them. And I remember them saying, 5, 4, 3, too late, and went to fire. And as they said too late, I remember screaming. I was playing this at the office. I remember screaming, "Please don't. My name is Brian Hicks. I'm the producer of DayZ. Don't kill my friend." And it was too late.
And what happened after?
What happened after is... I think I might actually have a clip of this somewhere. There was a gun battle in the streets. I was running from them. I turned around after they took a couple pot shots with their Mosin and got a center mass shot that unconned. This is back when you could still speak while unconned.
Yep.
And
I missed that.
I ran up and I said, "Just kidding. My name is Dean Hall, and you just got Dean." And then I ran away.
That's good. His next question: what genre of game would you work on next if you had the choice?
Open world. I don't really care what genre it is, as long as it is open world and it supports emerging gameplay. So the systems are there to provide a framework for the interactions and actions of players. That's what really gets my pecker hard, as my grandpa would say.
Okay. How much input does a lead producer have into the actual game features? Is the overall design a team effort? How were the final decisions made?
I was a terrible lead producer. Honestly, I spent most of my time in more of a creative directive role, despite holding the title of lead producer. Most traditional production tasks were handled by David Dorchak, or then later on by Eugen when we bumped him to associate producer from build engineer, which is what he was hired for. So I always held more of a role of interaction with the leads and interaction on the high-level vision and working with Peter and that kind of stuff. So I'm a terrible example for production roles.
Amakal comes in. Are you a fan of the new control system?
Yeah, I mean, it needs some iteration, but it's it's getting better. It's getting a lot better. Earlier versions, I was a little like, I don't know about this, but they've got, it's a tall task to get the control scheme to support everything it needs to, everything the players want to, everything they want to. But it's made a lot of strides, so I can say I'm a fan. It's definitely got room for improvement, but I'm a fan. It's getting there.
Citizen Z1000. Ah, Hicks, I always loved you. Sad to see you leave, but I had a friend I met in game that knew one of your previous friends from Microsoft and said we could write a letter of questions to you one day if they are education based. I'm not sure if I still know him or where he is at, but that was cool. But I was wondering if you would ever make or help with any DayZ mods in the future as you did with the Arma 2 mods. You've sort of answered this one, but we'll touch on it again for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a staff member over at OpenDayZ.net from the Taviana days, and I've tried to help Ponzer out over there and like cross postings and stuff, like the unofficial API documentation that we're posting on Reddit, and like I've been going through my old data and finding stuff on like old hard drives from like a document that had all the player spawns for like September 2014 or dynamic event locations, stuff like that. I definitely, I'll definitely do my best to help out when I can. I'm probably not going to lead the charge on another mod like I did back in the Arma days, just because one, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of excess baggage that comes with being one of the lead developers of the project.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I'm really enjoying modifying the Rage engine through 5M. And I'm not done achieving what I wanted to achieve over there. And it's really cool being able to, discuss things with like-minded people from the Arma modding community that made their way over there, like Coil from No Pixel. Occasionally I'll toss ideas back and forth to him, or Raging Ravage from the RP First community. We talk every now and then. It's like a much chiller version of the Arma modding community, and I'm enjoying that. But I'm going to play the fuck out of mods for DayZ. You can bet your ass on that one.
Scrotty88 to Brian. How does it make you feel when you see the way some members of the community express their disappointment over the state of the game that you worked very hard on?
Disappointment is fine. It's healthy. It's needed. I am a huge critic of my own work. The only thing that's ever disappointing is when it's dehumanizing. That's it. That's the disappointing part. That's the only disappointing part.
Vernon Price, as a lead designer, if you come up with the feature, what are the worst fears you can think of after presenting it to programmers? And are there like any limit rules of what to think of in the first place? Best regards, Price.
Well, a lot of designers, at least designers with a technical background, like in scripting and such, tend to like to fancy themselves like, I'm like I can talk their language. I know the terms. It can't be nearly as hard as they imply it is, because when I write it up in SQF or in Lua or in NScript, it's so much easier. Honestly, my biggest fear anytime I would sit down and talk with the engineers is, as I'm going through something trying to speak their language, because I dabble a little bit in C++, that secretly in the back of their minds are thinking, holy shit, he's an idiot.
Love that. Love it. Okay, actually Spirit. Spirit. Question for Hicks. Hey Brian, Cousin Spirit here. Now that you've separated from DayZ and had some time to dabble with 5M, have you got any future plans to join another development team in a similar role, or will you remain dabbling in your interests? Also, miss you. We'll speak to you soon, hopefully.
Actually, I've probably spoken to him since he's written that question.
Yeah.
To be honest, I have been a member of a development team for 5M, a team on modding 5M and the Rage engine through 5M for a while now. I just haven't told anybody about it because I'm enjoying, throwing caution to the wind and breaking shit and trying things that may or may not work. And I don't want the baggage that comes with like, oh, he's a professional developer, he must not make any mistakes. No, I like half-assing some things and prototyping some things and just being, ghostwriting, essentially. I have got a friend from Australia that's effectively my ghostwriter. Hands down, he is my ghostwriter. If anybody asks, oh, yeah, all those new features are great, thanks, Hicks, I'll be like, oh, don't thank me. Thank him. He did all the work. Because, I just want to be able to fuck around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely going to continue that.
What is 5M?
5M, in layman's terms, is a community, an anonymous community, written framework interacting with the natives and the native functions and assets. From Grand Theft Auto 5, specifically the single-player stuff, with their own network stack written around it. So it's modding GTA Online, but not modding GTA Online, because the network stack is their own.
Okay. Next question is from Uncooper. Now, before I go into the question, have you watched any of his podcasts, The Daisy Compass?
I'm aware of the Compass, but I haven't, no.
Should check it out. It is definitely a very interesting watch. He usually has one special guest on, and the three main people is himself, Ragebra, and Septic Falcon. The last one they had was Dude I Rage.
God, it's Jason.
Sorry?
Oh, Dude. Yeah, I know Dude I Rage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said Septic Falcon, and instantly was like, oh, Jason. I've seen Dude's stuff on Twitch.
Yeah. Very good, very good. It was a very interesting podcast. So I'll put links to it in the description of the video, and also hopefully a pop-up now on the screen as well. But definitely great hearing people who are very passionate about the game, even if they don't always agree. But listening to them just talk about things as well. I said to him he needs to do it fortnightly after each status report, so they can discuss everything that's come out. But his question is, when yourself and Dean used to sit down and start throwing ideas around for standalone, what were the craziest concepts?
That Dean somehow thought it would be a good idea that people would need to piss and shit, and he thought that would be great because we would track, probably in server-side memory, I would hope not in like a binarized storage file, we would track the level of feces in a given area, which would then, of course, attract rats and insects and make an area not viable for human occupation without like hazardous suits. Yes, this is all really fucking cool, but there's a couple problems out the gate. One, there's no fucking way we could have pulled that off with what we had at the start.
Yeah.
And two, the given nature of DayZ players, which sometimes, bless Dean's heart, I feel like he was a little out of touch with that, would mean that the coastal cities would be an absolute fucking wasteland of feces and urine at all times.
Yeah. Yep, definitely agree. That's awesome. He says he's watched the RTX 2015 panel, specifically the base building part, tens of times. He loves the concept for improvised camps, but other base building ideas like barricading, epoch towers, or even caravans are often thought about for base building. Why was the improvised camp idea chosen over other options? Personally, he says he can't wait to build a few walls in a tower and light up with a generator.
So the existing watchtower that we have within the base building mechanics, which I think I showed in that presentation, the HESCO barriers, the generators, all of that stuff came from a concept. The idea that started us down that line was from a DayZ mod concept that showed like an improvised player base, which I also have bookmarked somewhere. It's still up on DeviantArt. What I really wanted to avoid, and for fans of Epoch, I apologize, but everybody has their own vision of what DayZ is. Everybody has what they think DayZ is. So I'm not trying to tell you what you think DayZ is wrong, but those fucking towers, in my perspective, all that sky bases and shit like that, is absolute balls.
Yeah.
It's just, it is shit. I don't want to see anything in DayZ, base-wise, that doesn't look like it fucking belongs. That kind of stuff instantly pulls me out. Like, ugh, ugh. I love the guys that did H1Z1. These are some of my biggest friends. By that I mean Just Survive. Of course, I'm also friends with the folks that did King of Kill and stuff like that. But the method that they took with just like this repeating texture set and just you see it and you're like, ugh, I don't believe this belongs in this world.
But
And that was
should
something
there
I
be the
always was.
capacity to do it though? Because obviously some people enjoy it. Should that be, and
Well, I
will
mean
that be
that's
something that
that's what
modders will be
modding
able
will
to
do.
do?
Honestly, Boydie, what the modders can pull off with considering how low level NScript is, how bare metal access it has to the engine, they're going to be able to do damn near anything they want,
Yep.
hands down.
So
The
those that
the
want to do it
limit,
will be able
the
to, but the
primary limit.
vanilla, no.
Oh yes, the
Good.
primary limit is only going to be their own imagination and their own competency. That is it.
Yep.
Um, but for me, when we were deciding base building, it had to be something that made sense. When you saw it, it looked like it belonged here. It didn't look like, oh, well, I'm playing a video game. Because when I'm playing Daisy, and that was always a thing for me, was I'm not playing a game, I'm in a world. And the things I see there need to look like they belong in the world.
Okay. We are now on to the final questions, mate. So the first question I have for you is, how do you feel about the direction the game is going in since your departure from the development team roughly 5 months ago, and even during the last few months in the team?
I mean, I haven't seen any major deviations if we're talking design, the direction of the design,
Mm-hmm.
since I left. Um, I'm obviously not a fan of what I perceive, but again, I'm from the outside looking in. I perceive to be management level, corporate management level pushes to get to slap a 1.0 on it before it's ready. But I mean, Peter does not need me. Peter knows what the fuck he's doing. We might disagree on the radio thing, but Peter knows what he is doing. And the people on the team, everybody from Vrada to Marchin to Lubos to Victor, they all know exactly what they're doing. So it's not like I depart Bohemia and suddenly the ship veers sharply to port. That's not the case.
Sort of touching on with the Xbox thing. Well, not really sort of touching on. This one really does touch on it. Some people are worried about that Bohemia Interactive's focus for DayZ now is all about console. They pretty much exhausted most sales they could have made from PC, but console is a massive new market for them and potentially a huge new source of revenue. Has anything changed, or are those with this concern getting worked up over nothing?
Honestly, I feel like the design we laid forth with DayZ it's not console friendly. It's not like it's Fortnite or PUBG. It's not like just a pick up and go. DayZ is a difficult game to understand and master, and honestly, most of the time your console audience, because it's a TV set box, it's a couch kind of thing, on a controller with limited input, they're not looking for that complex kind of thing. Not in droves, at least. There are consumers out there for it, but I don't think shy of them taking DayZ and completely redesigning the interactivity to it, which they're not going to do because Bohemia is a fucking simulator company. And I don't know, fucking cheetahs don't lose their spots, I'm certain that the technology base for DayZ, the infusion engine and such, enables them to do more stuff to this kind of level in the future. But if I was to say, Bohemia and console company and stuff, I'd look at more stuff like Vigor. Vigor is clearly a title that's much easier for a wider audience to pick up.
Yeah.
DayZ is not a wide audience title. I still have to explain DayZ to fucking game developers that don't quite understand what's going on. It's. I don't think DayZ is at risk of losing that. Maybe future projects, but not DayZ.
Okay. So you touched on this a bit, but I wanted to revisit it again. What was it like when Dean took off to Mount Everest and started disappearing from the team?
Well, the Mount Everest thing happened like a year plus from when he left. When he left for Mount Everest, there was barely a game, there was barely a team. I was still at Microsoft, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
The Mount Everest thing was just a fucking holiday he took. The departure of Dean, I mean, as I said, it was a slow transition, and Dean did not even attempt to start that departure until it was very clear, much like when I departed, that the team was self-sufficient, that he could do that and not feel nervous about it. If I was to sum up, like, you know, what it felt like, I would say maximum comfort for Dean and less stress. He knew that he could do it and feel comfortable about it. And the fact that he did, the fact that happened is entirely because he hired people that he trusted with the vision.
Okay. You mentioned, like with Dean, it was a slow progress, and that was definitely what we on the outside noticed with you. Why was it such a slow progress? Like the first thing we all noticed is you were involved in primarily in the status report, less and less and less. I know you did an interview with someone explaining what DayZ was and so on, but your public face just really seemed to slide down. And then we got the it was still a bit of a shock to a lot of us, but it wasn't really a surprise based on how little we'd seen of you or heard of you in the lead up to it. Why did it occur that way?
Well, there's a couple factors there. The slow decrease in contribution to status reports was also, it was a little bit reactionary on my part. It was reactionary because I just kept getting shit when I would try to describe why something was happening, design or development-wise.
Yep.
Describe what the intent of a system was going to be, or why, you know, where we wanted to go with something, and, you know, what the end result that we're starting to see now is, and why was it going to be this way? Why is it taking this time? Why is this important? And I was getting a lot of pushback on, we don't want you to wax nostalgic about things or tell us about ideas. We want to see GIFs. We want to see videos. We want to see models. We want to see finished content. And literally is not my fucking job. that is other people's roles, and I'm not going to take their thunder. I'm not
Yep.
going to be like, Victor, give me all the cool shit. No, that should be for Victor. You know, he worked on it. It's Victor's job. It's Peter's job. Let them toot their own horn. That's why they have their own portions of the status reports. I'm not so insecure that I have to stick my name in every one. You know.
Yep.
If I had something that I needed to say that I didn't think people were going to bitch at me for repeating, despite the fact that there's hyperlinks so you can just skip right past my fucking text if you don't want to read it. I got tired of checking the status report and seeing the top comments bitching about what I was saying.
Yep.
They want to see models and finished content that comes from the people that make it. I'm talking about the high-level vision of the game because that's what I work on. So, I mean, that was primarily why you saw the slow decline. Because really, at the time, internally, it was all technology, trying to get the new system up to par, trying to iron out the kinks, virtual machine exceptions fucking everywhere, server crashes, client crashes, you know, odd bugs. None of that stuff is new content. It's fucking the slog of implementing new technology.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as that progressed and things got closer and closer, and, you know, I saw a DayZ forming that was more than we could have ever dreamed of having when we started the project. And I saw that, you know, the designs were all written up and prototyped internally, prototyped on old technology. It was just less and less for me to do every day. And, you know, I was getting homesick. My blood pressure was always high because people wanted it now. And nothing I could do could make the engineers go faster.
Yeah.
You don't want me diving into Visual Studio and open up a CPP file. Like, it's not what you want.
So ultimately, it was your
like,
decision to leave. You weren't tapped on the shoulder or
Oh,
anything.
fuck yes. No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, to be quite honest, the announcement of the departure was probably at least a couple months, if not 3 or 4, after the actual departure, because Bohemia themselves were concerned about my departure, and David Dorchak was concerned that how it would be taken. I'm like, David, it's fine. Like, you can see the build, you know where we're at, and his concern was, well, yeah, but they can't. The players only see the videos we show them. They can't touch it. And we're really worried about the reaction of the departure because they can't see what we see. I was like, yeah, that's fine. We'll give it a couple months. I'll review builds and give feedback to Peter. And that was it. That was, for those few months, I wasn't really doing anything on the team. I was reviewing the builds. I was playing them and writing up my feedback to Peter, but that was pretty much it.
Yep.
So if anything, it was, please wait.
Okay, well, I think that's going to clear up for a lot of people what they may have thought. Now, in my interview with Martin, did you watch that one?
No.
Okay. We discussed the Twitter issue that was all the rage with people everywhere being blocked. He clarified that very few people were blocked by the official count, but what individuals such as yourself did with their own personal accounts was up to them. Now, quite a few people have made a song and dance clickbait video claiming that they have been blocked by you. Unfairly, they claimed, or that you couldn't handle a joke. What is your take on this? Obviously, the most well-known case is Silo, but there are others as well who have been blocked, or so they claim.
I really don't like giving airtime to people like that. Every time I talk about it, it's just more attention to them. The Silo thing, that whole thing came out while I was at a trade show. And I remember stopping in the lobby of the hotel and opening up my laptop and logging into the Twitter account. Maybe someone removed the block before I got to it, but when I logged in, he was not on the block list. And the DayZ official account block list, it can be counted on like two hands.
Yeah.
Considering the volume of people that follow that and interact with that account, that's fucking staggering. Mm-hmm. And primarily, I'd say 7 out of 10 of those are either accounts involved with software piracy around DayZ, cheat authoring around DayZ, or accounts like Hicks sucks dicks.
God almighty.
As far as my personal account, I've blocked some people. Who gives a fuck? Who is anybody to say I can't take a joke? If you say on your Twitter account in a tweet to me that you like apples and I want to block you for it, it's my fucking Twitter account. Like, it's mine. It did not come to me through my job. It's not a part of my job description to tweet things. It's mine. It is my account. And it is my call. That said, sometimes, I block people because I couldn't. Hold on a second. Sometimes, I've blocked people because I didn't like what they said. And sometimes I've looked at it later on down the road because I like to be a good critique of my own behavior. I was like, maybe I was too sensitive. Like, there was a guy, oh my God, why can't I think of his name? Probably because it's almost midnight. I'm usually in bed by now. But there's a guy that plays with Moho. And he's done some raps on his YouTube channel. And some of them are really fucking cool. Like, really cool. The guy's got talent. But he put a tweet out once about me being a faggot. And I was like, you know what? No, fuck it. Block him. Then later on, I was like, maybe he was angry. I don't like when people use a term like faggot, like as an insult or anything. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too sensitive. But listen, if I like to, if I fancy a good dong, that's my fucking business, and nobody should be ashamed of their preference. Your sexual preference is your sexual preference, and don't you fucking shame me for it.
Well, you just admitted you're going to fuck 3 guys earlier in the interview, so you do you.
That is true. That is true. But I think I took it a little too personal. Maybe I should have just told him, hey, dude, that's not cool. And I removed the block. And the funny thing is, he did do a video about it, and I think we're good. I think he and I don't have any beef. I think we squashed it. And there are other people that have been blocked, specifically because they were involved in harassment involved in my personal life. Like, I don't think my personal life is something that anybody's fucking YouTube channel should deal with.
Nope.
So they got blocked.
I agree with you. But I just know it's been such a hot topic of, if pretty much second after DayZ sucks for clickbait is Brian Hicks blocked me, I think, when it comes to DayZ-related clickbait videos.
Honestly, I know what you're talking about there, like, as far as that goes. And the funny thing is, they'll accuse me of not being able to take a joke. Why can't they just move on from not being able to see my Twitter account?
Yeah.
Like, why are they so fragile that they need that validation? Who cares what Brian Hicks thinks? Who the fuck cares who Brian Hicks wants to see tweets from? It's just my Twitter account. Like, I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
You didn't buy a copy of my Twitter account. You bought a copy of DayZ.
So, how did you deal with the amount of shit that you copped on a day-to-day basis?
Scotch. You might have heard of it.
And medication for your blood pressure.
Yeah, well, later on. Actually, I had a doctor that suggested to combine the two. It's a benefit of living in Europe is the easy access to Scotch from Scotland. Scotch, and the great thing is Czechs really don't like it, but it's still in the European Union. So,
what's your favorite Scotch?
A hell of a lot more affordable. My favorite would have to be Glengoyne 21 single malt.
Yep.
Absolutely love that. I had that when one of my birthdays. I treated myself. I had saved up some miles through British Airways, and I had pinched every penny, and I flew myself to Edinburgh and stayed in a Waldorf Astoria for 2 days. And it sucked my bank account dry, but it was something like, I'm from fucking the Pacific Northwest in the United States. Most people in my country don't even leave their state, let alone their country. To get all the way to Scotland and to be able to stay in a fucking Waldorf Astoria in front of a castle and go on a tour of the Highlands, if I can do that and drain my bank account, I'm going to do it because I'm probably never going to be able to do it again in my life.
Yep. That's good, mate. It sounds like you finally managed to get past all of these demons with all this fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I'm for the most part, yeah.
Are you worried that it's going to start up again with your new job?
A little bit. Not nearly as much because the current project, I have the benefit of being able to develop outside of fucking early access. But no, not so much on the current project.
Is that part of the reason why you're being so quiet about it?
Oh, yeah, I don't want to overhype. And I want to have the core foundation done and ironed out before consumers get their hands on it. I don't want to do another title where we ship bare bones as fuck.
Do you have any regrets about DayZ?
I have a lot of regrets about DayZ, and I'm going to keep them to myself.
Fair enough, mate. On a more positive light, what is your favourite memory of DayZ? Be it something either in-game or IRL. I'm leaning more towards IRL. I'm certain you have some amazing stories to tell from PAX's meeting various online celebrities.
Actually, one of my favorite memories in-game that comes to mind. I was playing shortly after the V3Ss were put in. It was myself, Blackout, Jamjar, Echo, Katie Wolf, it was the whole crew. And we were making our way from Svetlo towards Novad. We had one V3S, but it was a V3S cab, no bed. And Katie was driving back and forth between the Svetlo group and Novad destination, or he was supposed to move people one at a time. But after he drops off Echo and he comes back for us, Katie being Katie, screaming, "Woo! Roll Tide!" Driving this fucking thing like it's, a Bigfoot monster truck through the field between Svetlo and Novad, and we just see, as we come out of the trees, we see, we see him hit a rock, and it literally flips onto its side and slides. And there was no way to get it back up. And we spent all that time fixing that fucking thing. And just just everybody's reaction, like, oh, KD. Oh, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun back then.
I do. You mentioned a lot of these names from what I call kind of like the golden era of DayZ. Yes, a lot of people associate Frankie on PC with DayZ, but for me, I was a little bit of a latecomer. I started, like most people, watching Frankie's videos, and then got absolutely hooked on the game. And I was watching as much content as I could. I was watching Blackout series as he was dropping episodes, and Jam Jar streaming, and KD Wolf, LP, Mr. Moon, and all the rest of them. And I truly hope all these people do come back to DayZ, because they were all such unique content creators, but their best stuff always was when they were together. Like, in my opinion, the best stuff of Paul and FT and Rene is when they're together. Those three, I call them the holy trinity of DayZ. When they're together, oh my God, the stuff that happens is just amazing. And that's the beauty of DayZ. It's such a interactive game.
I don't know if they ever will, because you have to understand, being, I guess, prolific content creators, primarily from DayZ, the amount of shit they get about it is probably almost just as much as I did. And mental health is a huge thing. Like, I don't know if I would wish upon them the same kind of stress. If they enjoy it and they have fun and they want to play it, yeah, I hope they do. But I don't want them to feel any responsibility or obligation to come back.
Okay, you mentioned it before, and I said, wait, I've got a question about it. Scum. If you believe the internet, and why wouldn't you believe the internet? Because they're right about everything. But it's a DayZ killer. I personally don't feel it is, but what do you feel on
it? All right, so there's a reply I made to a post I saw on the DayZ subreddit that was deleted by the author. The post was called "Why Scum is Not Better Than DayZ." And I'm just going to read my reply to that to you and expand upon it a little bit. Now, after this guy put this post up, the thread up detailing why DayZ is better, I responded just saying, guys, please, this kind of tribalism helps no one, and in the end only serves to add to the stress of both developers. Scum is an awesome game and a great accomplishment, especially for a team the size of Gamepires, but I've seen this back and forth so many times before. A new title in the space comes out, some of the people who enjoy it take said enjoyment way too far to the fanatical level and go on some sort of holy war against their previous game, whether it be H1, DayZ, Miscreated, whatever. The toxic back and forth and fanatical buildup of the new title and team over the initial launch weeks and months is both euphoric and stressful for both developers. And inevitably, with time comes the realization from many of these evangelical supporters, but for some reason not all of them, that software is just that, software. And the new game or new team didn't suddenly rewrite the reality of game development, wherein each approach and each project has its own strengths, its own weaknesses, its own challenges and successes. In the end, the community settle, but the developers end up recovering from a severe spike in blood pressure. And I apologized about this being disjointed because I wrote it really quickly.
Yep.
But the TLDR is play what you like and let other people play what they like, because you're not helping the other game. You're in fact causing a lot of fucking stress for both developers. There are problems, there are bugs, there are shortcomings in all these titles. And everybody has their own spin on it, and nobody fucking owns the space. I personally reached out to some of the guys on the Scum team. And some of them have followed me on Twitter for years, and they're good dudes. And I've sent them, like, in their darkest hours since launch, I've made sure to send them messages of support, just like I did with H1 when they were having trouble at launch, and Miscreated and anybody else in the space. Like, we're all doing this because we love the genre, because we love the gameplay.
Yep.
We're not, no developer out there is doing it because I'm gonna fucking end this other game. Like, that's not how it works. And I really wish people would stop trying to push this level of tribalism.
Yeah.
Just fucking play games.
I've been having a back and forth on Twitter with someone at the moment where he was basically saying that Scum is so much better. I said, why compare them? They're both great games in their own right. They've done something different because really, unless you're pretty average a person, you're not just going to carbon copy a game and pump it out. You're going to do your own take in it. And Scum's got some great ideas, the mechs and the way the infected are and their crafting system. I love it. But I still love DayZ.
It's fun.
I don't have to hate one because I love the other. I love both games.
Yeah, when Scum launched, I couldn't put it down. I had a ton of fun.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic game.
I don't play it too much anymore.
It's the same with... Well, I just don't have time for games in general anymore. But you bet your ass it's in my Steam library, and I put more than enough hours into it to justify my $20, for Christ's sake. But please, if you're a Scum fan, don't try and attack other fucking titles and make it seem like, Gamepires or Scum or the Unreal Engine walks on water. We've all got our warts. We've all got our hurdles, and you glossing over it is not making it fucking easier.
Yeah.
It's in fact just going to make the fall harder when inevitably a problem pops up. And they've been through theirs and we've been through ours. And shit, I know Peter's checked it out and he's been like, man, I'm fucking jealous. They got some stuff in here that I've been wanting to do for a while. Like, we're all fans of each other's work, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, their fucking Unreal project name is Con Z, as in Convict Z. They're good dudes over there.
Have you had a chance to play on Sumrak's Namolsk?
I have peeked over Adam's shoulder while he's working on it, and we did do some early footage for a status report a long time ago, or screenshots. But no, I'm intentionally keeping my distance because I want to be just blown away when I touch it. And if he's anywhere near what I've seen just looking over his shoulder in the past, I can't fucking wait for this fresh take.
Yeah. I'm hyped because I had, as I've said several times, I had very little experience with the mod, so I've never played Namolsk. And one of the things, we were talking about Scum just before. One of the things I did dislike about Scum was the map and the little cursor indicating to you where you were. One of the things I was so excited for was being lost again. It's the one thing I miss from DayZ is I can still get lost. Like if you end up in the middle of the forest somewhere, if you log onto an account you haven't played in a while and you logged off in the middle of a forest, it'll take you a little bit of time, unless you've got a compass, to work out where you are. You may find yourself running towards the coast. But Scum kind of robbed me of that by having the map just by pressing M and a little flashing cursor telling you not only where you are but which direction you're facing. So Namolsk is going to be huge for me because I don't know the map other than seeing pictures of it and the little bit of a clip that Sumrak was generous enough to let me share with people. I know nothing about it, and I'm so excited to get lost playing the game.
Amen.
Any titles in particular that you're looking forward to?
Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Yep.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, yes. Dead Matter?
I've been keeping an eye on it. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yep.
Yeah, primarily just those two are that's where I'm keeping my finger on the pulse.
Yep.
I spend a lot of time playing VR lately.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Oh yeah, a lot of time.
A lot of your tweets are about VR lately.
But the Vive and the Steam Vive stuff and the Rift store, there are some amazing experiences. Uh, there's nothing I'm waiting on for it right now necessarily, as much as I'm enjoying watching the evolution of movement and the whole of the VR industry slowly moving towards fluid movement, which I believe is absolutely 100% critical to VR being taken seriously, especially in larger spaces.
Mm-hmm.
The teleport shit it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It worked when it was fresh, but people expect more. Immersion needs more. And of course, the evolution of the controllers, the touch is fantastic, and the knuckles controllers, and the fact that it's like a capacitive sensor on the grip, so it's like it's the data on the amount of the grip and how much you're pressing, which finger you're pressing. It's all float data, which is so much more precise than an open close switch, like the stuff on the original Vive wands were. So yeah, the VR stuff in general, like I'm just constantly looking at that. But fucking Red Dead Redemption 2 and Resident Evil 2. Mm-hmm.
Red
Oh,
Dead Redemption
and Last of
2.
Us 2. Last
Yes,
of Us 2.
yes.
Oh God, yes.
Okay, in your opinion, is DayZ going to be the game you hoped it would be when you first heard about the standalone project?
Oh yeah, it'll get there, undoubtedly. I can say that confidently right now, just because looking at what's available for scripting and modding by itself
Yeah.
ensures that the engine supports what we want to do. So yeah, it'll get there.
What advice would you give to people thinking about buying DayZ?
Watch streams more than YouTube videos. You can't really edit a stream,
Mm-hmm.
Watch Twitch streams and read the status reports, and make sure you look at all the warts and all in the streams, and read the status reports. And if it's at a level where you're comfortable with, pick it up, and make sure to play with friends.
Who do you recommend they watch? Anyone in particular?
Well, obviously FT streams are good, but most of the time, Jake on 72,
Yep.
fantastic stuff. Obviously Renee's stuff is going to be amazing. Toprek,
Oh, God, he's hilarious.
also very good. Toprek, Dude I Rage is fantastic. Lottie has been getting back into streaming. Lottie.
Yeah, she's getting some
She does a
decent
lot of good
numbers too.
content. Yeah. It's 5 minutes to midnight, so my brain's a little fried. Those are the names that come up straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Septic Falcon. We all know Septic Falcon. Yes, Jason, I remembered you.
The very last question, mate. What can we expect from you in the future?
Oh, and before he shoots me in the face, Minder. Don't forget Minder. Well, what you can expect from me in the future is continuing to pursue what I am passionate about. And that is open world, that is emerging gameplay, that is immersing the player in a living, breathing world and giving them the tools to create the stories that they want to have, the stories that are shareable, that a designer can never write out for a narrative title. That's what gets me. Moments.
Brian, this has been an absolute monster interview, almost 5 hours. I'm going to have to break this up into possibly two or three segments, I think. It's just going to be too big to dump on people all at once. No one's going to have that amount of time to sit down and listen to an interview. But I have to thank you, mate. I think this is probably the longest interview you've ever done.
It definitely is.
Brian, thank you so much, mate. I think my voice has dropped about 10 octaves just from talking so much. I should have had a bottle of water with me, or a bottle of scotch, maybe. Spaggie, hint,
Mm-hmm.
nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You're in the Queen's country, mate. See what you can hook our Brian up with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. He has my address.
Mate, thank you so much.
Wait, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have the new one. Don't send to the old one, Spaggie. I'm not a Washington State anymore.
Hit him up in the DM, Spaggie. All the best, everyone, and ciao for now.